good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening to us. This is Jacqueline Asiimwe, and this is Footprints, the podcast where we tell the stories of our elders, glean their wisdom, and talk about legacy, succession, and transition. I am very pleased today to be hosting Dr. Robin Kibuuka, and he is going to tell us a bit about himself. May I call you Robin so that I don't...
By all means.
By all means.
By all
Thank you so much. He's my elder, so you have to say, is it Sai, is it Sebo? So I have to clarify. And so Robin, tell us a bit about yourself. What was Robin like as a little boy?
Robin was just a very ordinary little boy. But I grew up in a very loving family. It was an extended family. So we had grandparents, we had aunts, uncles, cousins. We were all together most of the time. Something we don't see quite that much these days because we are now more focused on a nuclear family. But I grew up in an extended family and was a very loving family, very religious. My father eventually was ordained as a minister in the Anglican church. He became a reverend canon. And we used to go to church every Sunday. We would pray every day. So I was brought up in a very religious family. And even in school, we used to go to chapel every day, except Saturday. And of course, we had service on Sunday. So that is basically my background. And I acquired most of my values from the family, observing the way they used to share whatever they had with others, extending very loving care for me, for everybody in the home. So that is my legacy, if you will, family legacy. And I think that's what I'm trying to portray in this book. Now, I was very lucky because I went to good schools. I was at King's College Ibudo at age 16, and I got an opportunity to go to the United States. And there I spent 2 years finishing high school, again in a boarding school, an Episcopal school, Anglican church. Again, Sunday was a routine day, and on Sunday. From there on, I went to Yale for college. But there it was a little difficult because I had a scholarship, but wasn't full scholarship. I worked several jobs, initially bussing tables in the colleges and residential places. And I did student laundry. I worked on reunion. I worked even in the president's office at receptions. But that was character building for me.
Yes.
Because I struggled, and eventually I came to realize how beneficial it was to be a bursary student. We won scholarship, so we had first call on university campus jobs. And I learned a lot from those jobs, including earning money and, of course, other things. And eventually I ended up working as a research assistant at the Yale Economic Growth Center, which kindled my interest in economics. I ended up majoring in economics. At that point, I was accepted to go to grad school, but I didn't have a scholarship. So I opted to come back to Uganda and worked at Makerere for 15 months. The reason being that the Rockefeller Foundation at that time was sponsoring students from a number of universities in Africa to go and do their postgraduate programs in the United States. So I came back to Makerere for 15 months, as I said. I became part of the staff at Makerere, and that way I qualified to be sponsored to go back to the US. So after 15 months, I went back to the US at Harvard, did my PhD there. From there on, I moved on to the IMF. Reason being that Amin was in power in Uganda, and the situation was very difficult. This was in 1977. So there was no point returning to Uganda or to teach at Makerere. And I think they fully understood. So I went on to the International Monetary Fund with the intention of working there for 3, maybe 5 years. I ended up being there for 32 years.
Wow.
So I had a career there. I retired in 2009. and decided to come back to Uganda. Initially, I thought I'd be teaching at Makerere, but that did not work out. Eventually, I got appointed to several boards, including as chairman of Standard Chartered Bank, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Namuronda Investments, Buganda Kingdom Company, in charge of looking after their property. And I also took courses, executive programs at Strathmore University, where I was invited to join the faculty on a part-time basis. And I was also appointed to be chairman of the advisory board, or rather a council for Strathmore University in Uganda, with the intention of trying to establish a campus of Strathmore University in Uganda. So recently I launched my book, Build Legacy, Not Inheritance, embracing the journey of building a lasting legacy, to sort of summarize what I've learned over the years, growing up, acquiring values in Uganda, struggles in the US, trying to make ends meet, and a career at the IMF, and then various activities on the various boards in Uganda. By the way, I also became a Rotarian in 2008, and I have since become a Major Don. So I'm quite involved in a lot of Rotary activities, service above self.
Will we see you at the run?
Yes, on Sunday I'll be there. The cancer run.
Yes.
For Rotary, yes.
For those who are listening to this and are not in Uganda, from Uganda, Rotary in Uganda does a cancer run once a year. They've done this for several years now. That's right. And so the run is coming up on 31st of August, 2025.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been an amazing arc that you have painted for us. And I want us to go back just a bit and tell us a bit about the people that were early influences for you, who you patterned your life after, or who impressed upon you values that you live even today.
Okay. Fundamentally, it's my family, both my parents and of course uncles, aunties, grandparents. Let me start with my parents. Actually, the whole family, there was a lot of commitment to public service. Many of my senior relatives, my parents were both in education. My grandfather on the maternal side was also in education. He was an inspector of schools at one time. My grandfather was ordained a minister in the Anglican Church. He was a Reverend Colonel. I had uncles, aunties who were in education, teachers, and all of these influenced me. So from very early on, I could see a strong commitment to public service. And as I said earlier, religion and other values were heavily imparted on me. My father was initially in administration, and he used to take us around on his job to show us what he was doing. And that was quite revealing to me, to see how he was working with different leaders, whether they are Saza chiefs, Gomorrah chiefs, and so on, how he was working with them to help improve the administration of the country. But he was also a man who was very dedicated to public service, very ethical, very high values, and very hardworking as well, very disciplined. So he imparted that discipline on us. And I learned a great deal about him. He did not just talk about public service, he lived public service. My mother was in education, starting mainly focusing on nursery school, but also helping young girls, teenagers, because she also was instrumental in establishing the YWCA in Uganda. So with that background, she was very keen on helping young girls as well as young children. So she set up nursery schools. And then eventually, when my parents retired, they set up a vocational center at Nangabo in the village about 10 miles north of Kampala, where they had nursery schools and where they were able to train young girls to help with the young children in the nursery. And that was expanded to include pottery, weaving, and other activities. So there was a lot of focus on the community service. Now, my teachers were also very influential. I remember there was one teacher, Mr. Laban Bombo, who had been at Budo, King's College Budo, and eventually became the chaplain of the school. But he took a keen interest in me, and he's somebody who really, I could see he took a keen interest in me and made me feel that I was somebody who was important. He encouraged me and really motivated me to do the best work I could in school. I went to the US, and that arrangement was made through, at that time, Reverend John Walker, who was teaching at a school in the United States, in Concord, New Hampshire, St. Paul School. He had come to Uganda on a sabbatical for a year and was trying to find a Ugandan boy he could take back to the school. So somehow we connected in Uganda and he made arrangements. So I left Uganda at age 16 to go and finish high school in the United States through Reverend John Walker. He became my guardian when I got to the United States. And I also had an aunt, Mary Weeks, a husband, Sheldon Weeks. So those two, plus John Walker's wife, Maria, the four people were the ones who were looking after me in the United States. And they influenced me tremendous in so many ways. One, Sheldon Weeks was teaching at Harvard, eventually came to Makerere, went to Dar es Salaam University. So he helped me, he took a keen interest in me as a young boy, particularly when I go to college, and he helped me a great deal. After I graduated from Yale, I got an offer to go to Harvard, but I didn't have funding. I didn't have a scholarship. So Sheldon Weeks is the one who linked me to the Rockefeller Foundation in New York. And then through some contacts he had at Makerere, he linked me to Makerere University. So he was very instrumental in that transition for me to come back to Makerere and eventually to go back to Harvard for graduate school. John Walker was basically my father. He was a reverend, so clearly I looked up to him, both as a teacher, as a guardian, but also as a religious leader. But he left St. Paul's School in New Hampshire after 1 year to go to Washington, D.C., where he was appointed to work at the National Cathedral. And he became a Reverend Canon. And several years later, maybe 10 years later, he became a suffragan bishop, assistant bishop of Washington Diocese, the first Black Americans to be appointed to that position. And eventually he became the bishop of Washington Diocese, in charge of the National Cathedral. So I used to spend vacation with him and Maria in Washington with his family. And I got to know a lot of people in the embassy, Uganda embassy, and people around the cathedral. And watching Reverend John Walker transition from Reverend to Reverend Canon, suffragan bishop to bishop, was quite an experience. And unfortunately, he died. He passed on in 1989. And one day, after he died, I went to the home. And at the home, I found Bishop Tutu. I don't know whether he was Archbishop at that time, but maybe he was Archbishop. But it turned out, I learned later, that Reverend Bishop Walker and Archbishop Desmond Tutu were very close friends. So Desmond Tutu had come to attend the funeral of Bishop Walker, and I met him at the house, and he had a small voice, commanding voice, but a very determined man, soft-spoken, but his message was very powerful. And I got to realize how similar the two people were, Bishop Walker and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. They both had soft voices, but they used their pulpit to really preach a very powerful message about equal rights for everybody. and preached against social injustice. So they also had a tremendous impact on me. Brief as I met Archbishop Desmond Tutu. But in my mind, I fused the two because they were very similar. Comparable stature and the way they talked, but very, very determined people.
Yeah.
Very, very, very determined. Solid.
Yes, yes, yes.
Very steely, if I may say so. So that was quite impressive. Now, there are many other people who had an impact on me. One was I had a mentor towards the end of my career at the IMF, but he was very, very instrumental in doing a lot of things for me, helped to motivate me, get assignments for me. But I worked with him at a time when I also had a very effective coach. The IMF, if you become a senior official, which I had become, you are entitled to having a coach for so many hours. So that coach was extremely useful to me. At the same time, I was serving on the grievance committee for the IMF.
Yes, the HR grievance committee. That was
The entire IMF.
okay.
Now, it's an arbitration forum. If a decision was taken, I think what would happen, HR would carry on an investigation. And if they determine that there was a problem or, an issue, performance issue or personal issue, they will then recommend something to management. If our staff wanted to challenge that, they will come to the grievance committee. And the grievance committee will then make a decision and would advise the managing director. Beyond that, a staff could appeal and go to the IMF tribunal, which was outside of the IMF, made up of about 5-6 very distinguished judges or retired judges. So that was the IMF tribunal. So the grievance committee, if you will, was the middle level or the starting level for staff to seek arbitration or on their issues. So, and it happened that shortly after I joined the grievance committee, somebody who had been my classmate at Yale, freshman classmate, Joshua Javits, became the chairman of the committee. And of course, we were very good friends. And he encouraged me to take some courses in arbitration. Among the courses I took was one where they were training judges in arbitration. Because what they discovered in Virginia was that a lot of family cases, particularly divorce, where there was child custody issues involved, the cases will go to court. But usually the court decision favored the parent who had the best lawyer, meaning that
Not the best parent for that.
not that precisely. Yeah. Now they could give custody to a parent who was not the best one, and both parents will know that.
Yes.
But because it was adjudication in court, that was the decision. So the judiciary in Northern Virginia was increasingly realizing that arbitration was a better alternative. Because with arbitration, you have somebody who's trained, who can listen to both sides and try to find common ground. So both parents would agree that yes, the mother is the best custodian or the father is the best custodian. So through common ground, they could come to that decision. And I think they can agree willingly, both sides, that the most appropriate parent should be the custodian. And that works out much better for the family, for the couple, for the children, and everybody. So arbitration is a superior form of settling issues because it's based on common ground and it's owned by both parties. And usually it doesn't take quite as long, but when the decision is reached or when both parties usually are invested in that decision, so it's to the best for all parties concerned. So anyway, a long story short,
Yes.
I had chairman of the grievance committee. So that is arbitration. I had a coach and I had a mentor at the same time. and something converged, or shall I call it serendipity. All of a sudden, the bulb came on, and I could see a common ground between mentoring, coaching, and arbitration. What is it? It's the idea of creating a common ground, and it requires very careful listening to understand where the issues to find the common ground. And I think with the listening skills, you can be able to become a much better person. You can communicate better. You can create much better relationships. So for me, that was a major finding, which still stands with me and has transformed the way I looked at a lot of issues and problem solving life. So I bring that up because it was extremely influential in the way I look at life, and I think it's greatly reflected in my book.
Absolutely. In fact, I pick it up a lot from your book, the issue of listening. The other that I picked up is service. I almost literally started to count how many times you'd say the word service. It seems to be very foundational and fundamental to who you are and how you have lived your life. Service and discipline. So I told my team, this man, the way I've read, we cannot be late. Not because of that, but it comes through a lot. And my next question to you, Robin, I know it's hard to summarize, your length and breadth of experience, but as a leader, and you led many places and in many ways and many missions, and as you rose up the ranks in IMF, what would you say were like your 3 grounding principles as you led?
I think this is a good question, especially now that I've written this book. Where I am now, I think 3 factors stand out. One is attitude. Attitude is the way you respond to what life offers you. You can choose to be angry. You can choose,
And you'd be justified.
You'll be justified. But that is going to condition your reaction to that particular situation. Now, if you let anger get ahead of you, you'll probably be saying things you should not have said. Okay? And I think it portrays the image of somebody who is not in control of themselves. Okay? You may not see it,
Yes.
but everybody else will see it. Looking at you and observing you will see it. It's going to be either in the body language, in the tone of your voice,
Yes.
in the way you are connecting issues. That message will be very clear, and everybody who's listening, if they're listening carefully, they'll pick up those issues. If you choose to be magnanimous, then it's going to be handled very different. Now, take for example, you're a leader. Somebody on your team makes a mistake, okay? You could react by shouting. You could blow up. You blow up, okay?
Yes.
And everybody in your team will then be startled and would wonder what's wrong with the boss. I think you overreacted, this and that. Okay? And then subsequently you create the impression that you are somebody who doesn't tolerate mistakes and somebody who is quick to rebuke people in public or whatever the case may be. Yet, if you say that, look, that's fine, we all make mistakes. Okay? But let's sit down. How would we do it differently? Okay? There, you are going to make the person, staff, feel much better. One, to accept that mistakes are made. And after all, mistakes are our best teachers.
Yes.
Okay? Then if you sit down and ask that individual to say, how do you think we could have done this better? They start to come up with their own solutions. And they will go back and reflect on that. And chances are they will never make that mistake again. So in a way, you are helping somebody to grow out of that situation, rather than demeaning them and embarrassing them or whatever the case is. So the tone you set as a director, as a leader, makes a huge difference. So attitude is very important.
Yes.
And I think commonly when we are trying to solve problems, the problems will be coming to you all the time. But sit back, think about it, postpone your reaction. And you may also think of various ways you could deal with that issue. Sleep on it. You could call other people, talk to them, and it may take you 3 days, but then you come up with a better solution. So attitude is very important. And I think sometimes if you stop a minute to think about a problem, you choose a better solution or approach to solving that problem. So attitude is extremely important. 2, learning from your mistakes. I brought that issue of mistake. Now, no matter what, you are going to make mistakes. Okay? So mistakes are not a bad thing. They are your best teacher. You will not understand how to do a task well unless you understand the mistakes which can arise in trying to execute that project. Okay? And I think if you watch small kids, I'm a grandparent.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm very fascinated to watch my grandchildren struggle with something. They will fall, they will get up. They will fall, they will get up. They will fall, they will get up. Sometimes they fall so hard they cry.
Yes.
Okay? But after a while, they start to realize that, no, I don't climb something like that, or I don't ride a bicycle this way, or I don't. Eventually, that's how they get to learn, through trial and error. Okay? And so if you can accept your mistakes and not as bad things, but as lessons, which taught you something, so much the better. And then I think you will not hesitate to go and try something new because you are going to fail, because failure is part of the game.
Yes.
And no matter whether you are a child or an 80-year-old person, it's the same thing. Wherever you are in life, there are going to be those cases where you have to keep trying and trying. And don't be frustrated, don't be flustered. You can try something. Success may come at the 1,000th attempt. Okay? But each mistake you make, you learn something better and you become better at performing that task. So that's important. The other one is emotional intelligence. Life is not easy in the sense that when we're in school, we are learning skills. And back in the day, those are cognitive skills basically. And I think people used to think that we inherit a certain amount of intelligence. Okay? Which is true.
Yes.
And that is measured by quotient IQ. So somebody can have a very high IQ. They learn things, a very high aptitude to learn, skills, technical skills. But there is also now emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and control your emotions. But not only your own emotions as affecting you, but how you'll be interacting with other people. So that becomes extremely fundamental in the way you build relationships, particularly when you become a leader, either manager or somebody who influences other people. Dealing with people is very critical. And I think you have to pick up emotional or social skills. You can actually improve your emotional intelligence. Listening is a key issue because it allows you to be able to understand what other people are saying. You give them time, let them say what they have to say. And check out, did you mean this? Did I understand you to be saying this? You are checking in to confirm that what you are hearing is what the other person is saying. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not the case. Even the person who's telling you something, it may be that they were thinking about something else and they blurted out something different.
Or what you think it comes out different when you say it.
And it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
So if you take time to check on these people, they can say, oh, I'm sorry. What I really meant was A, B, C, D. Okay? Now that helps you to understand where they're coming from. And before you respond to them, you have a good opportunity to have understood what they are saying. The other one is empathy. And this is something which took me a long time to fully understand. Putting yourself in other people's shoes is extremely important. Why? Because the way you are going to respond to those people is precisely by you trying to put yourself in their shoes. And you ask, if I were in their shoes, what would I be feeling? Okay. And that helps you to come up with a response for to deal with the situation and help other people. And that will help you to create deeper relationships with people. So that and in the end, those connections become very, very important. Okay. You know common people. You went to the same schools. You have the same tastes. You both like flowers or nature, or you like sports, or you like music, or you are very artistic. Finding those common positions, talking about them, can create bonds which then help you to deal with other issues, whether they are management issues or whatever the case may be, at a deeper level. And you can be able to understand and assist each other in that regard, rather than operate with transactional relationships, which are very superficial and where you never really tell anything substantive. And you don't really get to know the person at a level which will help you to build a relationship and maybe expand it into partnerships, collaboration, whatever the case.
Now, we like I said, Footprints is also about talking to leaders about succession and transition.
Yes.
And you're in retirement now. I think we all fear, look at we different varying feelings. And not only that, legacy as well. And I think they're all tied in together.
I get that right.
You wrote a book, Build Legacy, Not Inheritance. Tell us a bit more about that. What did you mean?
Okay, that's a good question. It probably goes back to my child. When I have very fond memories of the family, extended family and all of that. And I can see what I picked up from my family. Something which is passed on to me. It's not something tangible. My parents did not leave that much material wealth to us. But what they left in terms of value, character building, and so on and so forth, lives with me. They inspire me on a daily basis. Okay? So in essence, they left something in my heart. And when I retired from the IMF, the first time I retired, 2009, I was an advisor in the statistics department, and I had big office as a manager. I was a member of the grievance committee. I had parking below. I had business cards, I could travel the world over for missions, this and that. All of a sudden, you realize you're going to leave all of those titles and everything.
Where you found them?
Where you found me. You are just going to leave the door as Robin Kibuuka, as you came in. And sure enough, the day comes and they take your ID, IMF ID, and stamp it in red, retired.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, they don't, maybe they use it for red, but
Yes.
the point is,
Yes.
it's no longer IMF ID in the sense before. They will let you into the building.
Yes.
And that's about it.
Yes.
Okay. You are cut off from email. A lot of support material you used to have. You cannot go to certain meetings and things like that. You're off. You now need to go and print new
Yes.
cards.
Yes.
It's, you have to find a new identity. Okay. You can no longer use.
Wow.
Okay. Now you realize, oh my goodness. So all of these things I'm going to leave behind. So I started a lot of deliberations, introspection. But most importantly, the question was, what am I going to do? Okay. And I wasn't so much looking for money to pay, let's say, tuition for my children, all the children had finished university by 2008. So a year later, I could retire. So that was no longer the issue, but I wanted to be able to be involved in something which was meaningful. So I started a long period of introspection. And that's where I started to realize I want to do something which will be lasting and which I'll be interested in, for which I'll have passion. I wasn't just going to get a job because to give me money or this and this. No. I said, no. I'm going to be choosing what I want to do. So that's when I started to think about it. And fortunately, as I said, I was able to come back to Uganda. I got those jobs on boards, mostly as chair, but I was also teaching at Strathmore University. So interestingly enough, a lot of things started to fall in place. I had been a manager, but I was not involved in governance. Now, as a board chair or a board director, you are involved in governance. What is governance? It's a leadership role, but different from managerial role. But I was also teaching at Strathmore. So teaching and practicing, it generated a virtuous circle of learning. You teach certain things in class, hear the students, go back to the board, listen to what was being discussed, and the interplay between the two was extremely educational. And importantly too, in teaching, most of the people I was teaching were younger than me. So, and at the time, still very important that technology, internet, and now AI became very, very important. So I was very challenged about technology. But the people I was teaching, were much more proficient in those areas. So there was an opportunity to have reverse mentoring, which was extremely useful.
Yes.
Now, if I put that in the context with what I had been doing at the IMF, with my introspection, a lot of things started to come together. And on top of that, Rotary was opening my eyes to the possibilities with service about self, but also by collaborating. Rotary clubs, Rotary as an organization is extremely interesting in the sense that it's based on clubs. Clubs emphasize diversity in classification, professional classifications, and they carry out projects where they partner with community members and they create what they call the Rotary Community Core, people who help them to provide continuity to projects when Rotary finally pulls out. And then they collaborate with other clubs, maybe in Uganda or outside of Uganda, on these projects. And when you start to hear the stories about these projects, how projects were put together, the success and so on and so forth, you start to realize that service above self and collaboration, again going back to networks and relationship with people, building relationship with people, all of that came together. And I said, why don't I share this experience with other people? Little did I know that was going to be a very arduous journey. It took me 4 years to write the book, but eventually I did, and there is a lot of iterations. But then a lot of things start to become clear to me. So the point here was that if you want to live something meaningful in life, if you want to have a meaningful life, but also leave something behind which is useful and which will be lasting, focus on legacy. Legacy, by definition to me, is something which you leave it's not something you leave for people. It's something you leave in people, okay? Whereas inheritance, I would define it as something you leave for people. It could be cars, it could be houses, it could be that type of thing. Yeah, they will help them, but they're not going to last because they are material. Now, why does legacy last? Because it's an impact on people. And I think you become a quiet voice in their mind. You inspire them. And I think with that inspiration, they can continue your work long after you are gone. So that's what I set out to do. One is to bring all my experience together and share that experience with other people, but in a context which would help other people to see how they can build their own legacies. And I use a lot of examples in that book, personal experiences, hoping that it will resonate with people in the way things come together, in the way you can learn and hopefully extend you impact on other people. And so a lot of my values as I was growing up, a lot of the things I believe in very strongly, they all came together, either in Rotary, working with boards, teaching, reverse mentoring. That's what my life has been about. Yeah. And I've been extremely lucky. Yes. Now, the important thing is I did not succeed by myself. There are gazillions of people out there. Yes. Some people I knew very well, others I did not know at all, who helped me on my journey. And if it hadn't been for those people, I would not have been where I was. So when you think about it, you come in this world with nothing. People contribute tremendously to your life experience, and in many cases in a very impactful way. It's your duty, you are duty bound to pay it forward. Okay? So that's where we continue the cycle of life, and you can be part of that sustainable cycle of life, because we have a duty of self-preservation where we need to create and improve welfare for the community in which we are, we grow up in. So that's basically where it all comes in.
I love that. Legacy is it's not what you leave for people, but what you leave in them. And we're going to land there as we then go to part 2. Tune in again, dear listeners.